You asked a really good question. You want to know how easy it is to have a VBAC. And a VBAC stands for a vaginal birth after a C-section. And as far as easy, it's never easy because labor, I don't think you could ever say labor is easy. But as for a success rate, about 60 to 80% of women are successful when they attempt a VBAC, meaning they end up with a vaginal delivery. As far as risks, the biggest risk to a VBAC is a uterine rupture. And it's very similar to if I made a big incision down my bicep and I started lifting heavy weight, what could potentially happen? The incision could burst open, and this is exactly what could happen to your uterus because it's a muscle, and when a C-section is performed, an incision is made on the uterus, and that's a weak point forevermore. So next time you go into labor and start contracting, that weak point is tested, and if it were to rupture, that can be potentially life-threatening to a mother and a baby. But thankfully, if this were to happen, it only happens 1% of the time. And so you can kind of weigh out these statistics in your mind and decide if a VBAC is right for you with the help of your doctor. Talk with your doctor about any concerns you have, and based on your previous pregnancy history, they can decide if you're a good candidate and help you understand what to expect for this labor. Now, let's say that your first baby was a C-section and your VBAC was going to be attempted for your second. If you'd never had a vaginal birth before, your labor is going to be like a first-time mom's labor. And these labors are longer and they're harder, and you push for like 1 to 2 hours before the baby's born. Even when you're 10 centimeters in the head, sometimes we can even see a little bit of the head from the outside, but it still requires a lot of pushing time. Now, you mentioned that your hips have been bothering you during this pregnancy, and the good news is if you're planning on getting an epidural during this labor, the epidural will take away your hip pain and the pain of contractions, and so you'll probably be more comfortable than you've been in months while you're in labor. So that is one big pro to having an epidural. But if you're planning on not having an epidural, I can't necessarily say that the hip pain you've been having will have much influence on you during labor, because the contractions will be so much more intense than the hip pain that you may not even notice the hip pain. But again, another good thing to talk with your doctor about, and they can decide if you're a good candidate and help you know what their plans are for your labor when it's time. If you have any other questions for me in the future, feel free to ask them on our Facebook page at facebook.com/InnerMountainMoms, and recommend us to your friends and family too.